A New York City concealed gun owner arrested at a police funeral. We spoke to Hakim Gibson, the photojournalist behind the Perception of Law Enforcement Instagram page, and he explained to us exactly what happened.
He actually came up to me and started yelling at me. "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Joey, what do you mean, what am I doing?" And he starts yelling at me in front of the lieutenant and says, "You don't have a permit for that." And I'm like, "Joey, what are you talking about? I don't have a permit for it." "You know that I have a permit because I told you a week in advance that I had a New York City concealed carry permit." Holds me by the shoulder and rips the gun from out of my waist. Gives it to the Nassau County officers. Then places me in cuffs. I get put seated in the back of Nassau County RMP. And I didn't even know the severity of it. All of a sudden I look to my left. There comes the SWAT team like what you would see in a movie with one guy hanging off. With guys hanging off on both sides for a so-called man with a gun. Radios are blowing up.
You were arrested.
Correct.
And you are a legal concealed carry weapon holder. You were
Yes.
arrested at Detective Jonathan Diller's funeral.
Correct.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so I've actually applied for my concealed carry in October 27, took classes. They did the background check, and surprisingly, I thought it would have taken a year, but within a matter of months, I actually got the approval letter. I got the approval letter early March, and I actually got the permit assigned to me on the 25th of March, which was on Monday. Crazy thing is I had the permit for only literally 5 days, and that was it. I had the permit from March 25th. I picked up the firearms on the 26th, and on Saturday, the day of Jonathan Diller's funeral, was the day that I completely lost everything.
Why does somebody need a concealed carry a weapon or pistol in New York City?
For self-defense, I'm a firm believer that everyone, as long as you are mentally fit and you have no criminal background, should have the rights to defend themselves. In my personal opinion, I'm a firm believer that the police, as much as there's 30,000 cops or 35,000 cops in New York City, all right, they can't all be there at once, all right? You're walking down the street, you're walking down, Georgia Avenue in East New York, or, Herkimer Street in Bed-Stuy. I get it, you do have police around, but they can't be there all at once, and they cannot be there with it. All right, it's not a guarantee that they're going to be there within that time period of, something happening to you. I'm a firm believer that not only the police aren't the only ones that should have guns, especially with these politicians and everything like that. They speak about, oh, we don't need, civilians don't need to carry guns. There's the police, but yet these politicians have an armed security detail with them 24/7. They have an armed security detail that's probably at their house right now as we speak. They have an armed security detail with them during the daytime. We don't have the luxury of that. The average law-abiding citizen, unless you're a millionaire and you're living, somewhere on the Upper East Side, all right, the average law-abiding citizen cannot afford to have, security, armed security. These politicians and these higher-ups are lucky to have that, but law-abiding citizens like me, we don't have that. So the next best thing to defend ourselves is with a firearm. And at the end of the day, people can say whatever they want to, but the reality of the situation is, I don't care how, if these strict gun laws were working, these criminals wouldn't be able to have access to them, regardless of how strict New York laws are, and especially even in other places like California, Boston, and all these other states that are anti-gun. Criminals will always have access to firearms, all right? If they cannot get them from off the streets, they're going to make them, all right? If the criminals
guns,
really,
right?
Yes, 100%. And not only just ghost guns, but homemade firearms. I've seen pictures of homemade firearms put together with pipes and other material. So it goes to show that if the criminals really want to get access to weapons, no matter what laws you pass out there, these criminals are still going to have access to it, all right? But the only thing I realize is what's happening is you're telling the law-abiding citizen, oh, you can't have this, you can't have a firearm. And even if you do have a firearm, you can't take it into certain places. But then again, look at it, for example, here's a perfect example. Times Square, it's a sensitive location. You cannot bring your firearm there.
The no gun signs,
all right?
right?
Yeah, it's a gun-free zone, all right? But if I'm not mistaken, 2 months ago, all right, a migrant shot a security guard and then shot at police. And that was a gun-free zone. So if your gun-free zone was working, all right, if your sensitive location law was working, how in the world was a migrant able to get into Times Square with a firearm, shoot a security guard, and then shoot at a New York City police officer?
So who do you feel that no gun signs are for, really?
The no gun signs are targeting law-abiding citizens. That's the only thing, all right? You have to understand that we're in a time period, especially with the bail reform acts now, you see these criminals, they're in and out. It's a revolving door, all right? They're in, and within a few hours, they're out. These criminals don't care about the laws. They have no fear, all right? The only people that do fear the law is the law-abiding citizens, all right? Which is why a law-abiding citizen will not carry into a sensitive location, all right? But in my opinion, that makes them more vulnerable, because at the end of the day, if God forbid something were to happen in Times Square, a law-abiding citizen doesn't have anything to defend his or herself with, all right? The only person that will be armed, aside from the police, if there are any police within that area, depending on a sensitive location, is the criminal itself, all right? And here's another perfect example of how the sensitive location laws have no use at all, all right? If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was in 2021 when 9 people were shot on the R train, all right?
Sunset Park, right?
Sunset Park. That criminal was emboldened, all right? Even if there was a sensitive location law at the same time, it wouldn't have stopped anyone. Look at the sensitive location laws and look at what's taking place on the subway systems. You still have people getting shot on the subway. It may not be an everyday thing, but a month and a half ago, we had a shooting on the A train. That criminal walked through the gate, didn't pay the fare, obviously, walked through the gate, and was on the train with an illegal firearm. What sense does that make? My opinion, make it make sense to me.
So let's take it to the day that you got arrested, right? You went to the funeral with the purpose of, I understand you're a portrait photographer as well.
Yes, correct.
Right? And you went there to do portraits?
Yes, I run this page on Instagram. It's called Perception of Law Enforcement. I created the page a couple years ago. I created it actually in 2018. And the first, people that were on the page was this father that would dress as 2 boys up as NYPD officers. And from then I took photos of them, and then I
police
took,
car, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
if you remember that,
Like
the pair of twins. Yes. So I, started out and started taking photos of people in the 3-3 and started moving up, and then people were calling me, hey, when can you take my photo? And the page just got big, and when it really gained more views at the time of 2020 during the Black Lives Matter riots, when no one, there was like, law enforcement officers were signing in, and they were on Instagram, they were on Facebook, and it was nothing but negativity towards the cops. And then, they see my page and they're like, whoa, something's up. This guy is actually not talking bad about us. He's not bad-mouthing us. This guy actually supports us. And from then the page went viral.
Now, in a time when there are folks who don't like the police, don't support the police, how did you come to be an individual who does support the police and admire the police?
Well, I admire the police because I'm trying to get into law enforcement myself. It's a dream job for me. I chose it because I want to help people, and not only do I want to help people, I chose it because I want people to see another side of law enforcement. Law enforcement officers, they're not what the media makes them out to be. And 9 times out of 10, everyone has a misconception of what a law enforcement officer is based off of what the media says. And a perfect example is, for example, there may be a 50-second clip, 50-second video, all right? And the media will only show you 15 seconds. And within those 15 seconds, you see what looks to be the officer retaliating. But if you watch the whole 50-second clip, you'll see the person strike at the officer, but the media won't show that. The media will cut the video in half or cut the video into a quarter and then show that part of the officer making a move, but they won't show what caused it, So, as I said, I chose that career path to help people, but to also show that, there are over 700,000 sworn law enforcement officers in the United States alone. Are you going to really sit here and say that they're all bad people? That's not the case. That's not true. I've met some really, really good people on this job. When my mother was sick, I had a cop come to my house and actually visit me and visit my mother when she wasn't doing well. She had pneumonia at the time. So you're going to tell me that out of all the 700,000 sworn law enforcement officers that we have in the United States, and even let's even lower it down to the 35,000 cops that we have in the city of New York right now, you're going to tell me that they're really all bad people? Makes absolutely no sense.
So now, fast forward to the funeral. You show up, and tell me about, you're doing portraits of these officers here. Tell me about that.
So at the time I was taking photos of the NYPD K9 unit. I was taking photos of a whole bunch of people from different departments, Putnam County, Nassau County, Suffolk County, fire marshals. Everyone was getting in on photos. So the last set of photos that I was taking before the incident happened, I was taking photos of the NYPD, MTA police, and corrections K9 unit, especially when they were lining up for the procession. The motorcycles were actually going to park, and I actually got the motorcycles coming down, and I was photographing all the guys from K9. I introduced myself, and they actually knew who I was. They're like, oh, they finally got to see who actually runs this page. So, yeah.
Now, at what point did an officer approach you? Because I understand he approached you and something happened. Now, before we get to that, you did bring your legal concealed carry pistol to the funeral. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, can you tell me about how you were wearing it, or what were you wearing at the time?
Okay, so I had a concealed carry holster, right?
Inside the waist belt or outside the waist belt?
No, inside the waist belt. If it's outside the waist belt, it's not concealed.
Okay.
All right. If it's visible, legally, technically speaking, it's not concealed. I was actually, as a matter of fact, I was hiding it pretty well because I was actually wearing a three-piece suit. I was wearing the pants, the jacket, and then also the vest with it too as well. So the vest was actually covering it, and then I had the jacket as well.
Now, what position inside the waistband?
It was at the very front, right here.
Appendix carry.
Yes.
Okay.
And the vest was actually covering it.
Okay. So tell me about this officer. And by the way, about this officer, I understand this is someone you knew previously.
Correct. I've known him for about 5 years now. He was actually
How did you guys meet?
Funny thing is, he actually DM'd me on Instagram. That's how we got in contact with each other.
Did you do a portrait of him?
Yes, I did. He was I did a portrait of him in 2020. Back then, when it was COVID. Actually, I only took like one portrait of him, and he had the mask on at the time. And I took it right by the Explorer, and he was one of the very first MTA officers I've ever photographed, if I'm not mistaken. And we've been in contact ever since. He's not someone that is brand new to me. He's someone that, when I was in Vermont, he would contact me. He would make jokes. He would laugh. He would make memes. He'd Photoshop pictures of me all the time. He would take my, take my head.
Not in bad taste.
Yeah. You never
just
saw
more
some
like
of the... Yeah, he was always joking around with me, which is surprising to me that he would turn on me and, go the route and do what he did.
Tell me about the interactions with him prior to the arrest. Didn't he pull you over once or something?
Yeah, he did it as a joke. I was actually driving down 42nd Street. I was going to park in Times Square. I was going to do a little bit of shopping around that area anyway. And he actually just pulled up next to me,
Not behind you?
No, not behind me. He just pulled up next to me because he knows my car. He knows my plates. He used to actually just run my plates just for the sake of running it. Then tell me how many tickets that I would have. And I'd be like, I know, Joey.
So he did that just to let you know as a friend?
He did that in both ways before. He did that just to just to mess with me. He was always pranking. He was always joking, which was why when that incident happened...
So let's go there. How did it start? He came up to you. What happened?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Funny thing is, when that happened, I was actually still in shock to the point where I was saying to myself, "Nah, man, this has to be April Fool's. It was March 30th, and I'm like, I know we didn't hit April yet. And at first I'm like thinking, I'm like, is this some kind of April Fool's joke? And I'm like, yeah, you really, if it is an April Fool's joke, you really have me. But
So
you know,
what was
a
the first
funeral.
thing that happened? Did he approach you? Did he say something to you?
Yes, he did. I was taking photos of the NYPD K9.
So in the middle of a portrait
Yes.
photography session.
But as a matter of fact, he actually came up to me and started yelling at me when I was actually talking to an NYPD lieutenant. He was an NYPD K9 lieutenant. And we were talking, we were having a conversation, and the lieutenant asked me, he's like, hey, could you send me all the pictures of the K9? And I said, sure, I got you, 100%. I got you. And then right as soon as I'm talking to the lieutenant, Joey comes out of nowhere, and he starts yelling at me. Like, I've never seen, within the years that I've known him, I've never seen Joey upset before in my life.
Why do you think he was upset?
I have no idea. I've spoken to Joey on the phone. Joey has called my number. Joey has called my phone. He's called me on Instagram. He's called me, you know, a few times. We've spoken on the phone a few times, you know. And I've never seen Joey upset, which is the crazy thing. Because, you know, it's one thing if you can expect it from someone who's nasty and has a nasty attitude and is obnoxious and is rude. But I didn't expect it from someone who's always literally laughing and joking and pranking and, you know.
This wasn't him.
It seemed like a different person, to be honest.
Wow.
It seemed like a completely different person. So he comes up to me, he's yelling at me, you know, he has the thick, you know, Italian, Italian accent, you know, Staten Island, you know, how they sound. And he's yelling at me. He comes up to me, he's like, Hakim, what are you doing? And I'm like, Joey, what do you mean, what am I doing? And, you know, and at first I'm like, you know, honestly, the sad part is I kind of was wondering if he was like, I wouldn't say he was, I was like, are you intoxicated? Because I've never seen you in this mood. But he comes up to me and starts yelling at me. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, Joey, what do you mean, what am I doing? And he starts yelling at me in front of the lieutenant and says, you don't have a permit for that. And I'm like, Joey, what are you talking about? I don't have a permit for it. You know that I have a permit because I told you a week in advance that I had a New York City concealed carry permit. I told you that a week in advance. So how do you not know that? How do you not know that I have a permit?
Now, did you tell him in a DM? Did you post it as a story on Instagram? What did you do?
I believe I posted it as a story on Instagram, but I sent it to him in a DM.
Okay.
Because I posted a video of me at the range, and he comes up to me, comes to me in a DM and says, bro, you're obsessed with guns. And I'm like, well, you can't say anything. First off, if you ever saw me at a range prior, it wasn't a range in New York because you can't touch a firearm without a permit in New York. So it was either in Jersey or Pennsylvania. And you definitely can't say anything to me now because I have my New York City concealed carry permit.
Tell me about the Instagram story. What did that contain?
I just mentioned that I got an approval for my concealed carry permit.
Oh, okay.
You know, actually did screenshot the approval, and I was like, finally, yes, it's about time. Because I felt like it was taking forever. I thought I had another year left out of whatever time that I've applied. I thought I had another additional year to wait for it, but it came quicker than I expected.
And what did the DM say?
The DM, I told him, I said, Joey, I got approved for my New York City concealed carry permit.
So he comes up to you, yells at you, accuses you that you do not have a permit when you indeed have a permit, and you have shown proof of your approval.
Yes, correct.
Online.
Yes.
What does he do next?
So normally it's a weird situation because I feel like if you feel that someone has an illegal firearm, wouldn't you detain them on the spot? Wouldn't you put them in cuffs on the spot? I told him, I was like, listen, because the mistake I can admit that I made was I wore a trench coat that morning. I wore a gray trench coat, and it was supposed to be 60 degrees that day. And so when I got to the funeral, when I left my home, it was windy, it was chilly outside, and I had the trench coat with me. And then as soon as I got permission, I asked Nassau if I could park my car behind their other cars, and they said, yes, no problem, you're good. So I parked right behind them, and which is why I felt like, you know, Joey actually came after me intentionally, because the police motorcycles were parked by my car, and Joey knows my plates. He knows the number for my plates, and I felt like that's why he came up to me. But he actually ended up disappearing for about I would say 7 to 10 minutes. He disappears. So as he's yelling at me, I said, Joey, I have a permit. All right. I checked my pants pocket. I realized, I'm like, man, it's in my jacket. It's in the car. I took off the jacket and I left everything inside the car. I grabbed my cameras and I started taking photos right away. All right. And I left it in there, which was on me. I can admit that I left it in there. All right. But it's not like the permit was in my home. And then,
is it something that's, you know, small enough to keep in your wallet, or is it like some kind of big certificate or something?
No, it's actually the size of your driver's license. It's literally the same size.
It's a card.
Yes, it's a card.
Oh,
I just usually try to, if I'm wearing a trench coat, it's much easier because the pockets are deeper, so I don't have to worry about the ID falling out of my pocket and then losing it, because that you don't want to lose. You lose your driver's license, that's bad too, but you lose your concealed carry license and you have your gun on you, it's not looking too good for you. So he disappeared for 10 minutes. Then all of a sudden he comes back. And at the time I was talking to a few Bridgeport officers because I went to my car to go get it. And it fell in the center console. So, and how I knew that was when I gave the officers permission, the Nassau County officers, permission to search my vehicle.
As opposed to you getting the permit by yourself?
Yeah. Well, there's no way I could have gotten the permit by myself because, so after he disappears for the 10 minutes, he comes to me and starts yelling at me again in front of the Bridgeport officers, get to your car now. And I'm like, okay, Joey, I'm going to my car. And I said, Joey, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Why are you bringing this, why are you hyping the situation up for? And in my mind, I feel like, I'm like, Joey, this is a funeral service. Even if you wanted to make an arrest as badly as I know you do, because you want your gun arrest, your gun collar so bad, you could have probably done it discreetly. But I think that what you were trying to do was you were just trying to make yourself known. And I felt like that's what happened. So he comes to me again. He starts yelling at me, get to my car. And I said, okay. I went to my car and grabbed the keys to open the door to go in and get my ID. Just as I'm about to put the key into the door, he comes to me. He's like, Hakim, stand right there. Stay right there. All right? Comes up to me, walks up to me, holds me by the shoulder, and rips the gun from out of my waist. Gives it to the Nassau County officers. Then places me in cuffs. All right? I didn't even know the severity.
He takes it from your appendix from the front.
Yeah, he walks up to me, holds me by the shoulder, and then rips.
Like a stop and frisk kind of.
Yes, basically, yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And he hands my firearm off to the Nassau County officer, and he hands my firearm off to the Nassau County officer. He places me in cuffs. I get put seated in the back of a Nassau County RMP, and I didn't even know the severity of it. All of a sudden, I look to my left. There comes the SWAT team, like what you would see in a movie, with one guy hanging off, with guys hanging off on both sides for a so-called man with a gun. Radios are blowing up. I'm actually sitting in the back of the car, and I'm hearing the radios, blow up. And I was sitting in there, and they said, Hakim, well, I said, listen. And as a matter of fact, when I was in cuffs, I had my keys in my hand, it's the back, and I threw the keys to the Nassau guy, said, heads up, here you go. I said, listen, I'm not a criminal, okay? I'm not a criminal, I'm not dumb. There's 20,000 police officers around here, all right? Do I look like an idiot to you to walk around with a illegal firearm in the presence of federal, state, and local law enforcement officers? I might be silly, but I'm not that silly to do that. And so I'm in the back of the RMP. I'm in the back of the RMP. And before that, after I was cuffed, I gave them permission. I said, listen, I'm not a criminal, okay? Search my vehicle, all right? Even though you normally don't give, you'd be like, you need a warrant to search my vehicle. I said, go ahead, search my vehicle. You're going to find the IDs in there. And I thought this was going to be, okay, well, Hakim, here you go. Have a good day. Sorry about all the commotion. Nope, it turned into you're being detained. They had my ID, they had my concealed carry, which is a valid concealed carry. If it has the red, it's it's
card, right?
yes,
card.
it's an unrestricted concealed carry permit, right?
And
Meaning no 2 hours to get it home, no 2 hours to no. It's not like an armed guard or it's not like a carry guard license. It's not a premise permit. It's a full 24-hour concealed carry, all right? And they had the permit on the clipboard, so I thought it was going to be okay. Well, have a nice day. You're good to go. You're fine. No, it wasn't like that. It was you're being detained. Then after that, okay. Well, even though we have your permit, we still need to verify that this is real. And I said, fine. I said, okay, I get it. You're doing your job. That's fine. All right. Guess, I don't know if it was the cell blockers or whatever they had, but no one was able to, not too many people were able to make calls in and out. They had no way of getting in contact with One Police Plaza to verify that my permit was legit and was real. So they said, you're not being placed under arrest. You're being detained. I said, okay, fine. I'm being detained. That's fine. I'm going to miss the rest of the funeral. I'm going to miss the procession, the casket coming out, all of that.
And you were planning to do more portraits as
yes.
well.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I said, okay, well, I know for a fact that this is something that's going to take pretty much all day. So I said, okay, fine, it is what it is. So I go back to the precinct, all right, and sat on the bench for at least a good 2.5 hours, handcuffed to a bench, right? And then they said, okay, well, you're going to step outside. I said, okay, fine. Thought I was going to see the detective. They said, oh, you're going to step outside for fingerprints. And I'm like, fingerprints? And I'm like, well, if you're fingerprinting me, that means you are placing me under arrest. So I asked the officer that was fingerprinting me. I said, let me guess, this is an arrest, right? He said, yes. He didn't even tell me what I was being arrested for. I didn't know what I was being arrested for until I spoke to the members of the detective squad.
What was the reason?
They said it was criminal possession of a rifle, a firearm, rifle, or shotgun in a sensitive location. But in my what I know from the sensitive location laws is, like, for example, a business like a little restaurant or even a deli store, unless that business has a sign on it that says concealed carry holders are welcome, you cannot bring your firearm into that business. Governor Hochul, you can thank Governor Hochul for this. She set up these stipulations where I think that what she was trying to do was basically fight against the Supreme Court decision. In her mind, I feel like what she did was like, okay, she probably said, in her mind, she's like, okay, you little crybabies, you want your concealed carry so bad? Fine, we'll give it to you. But here's under one condition. Here's a bunch of stipulations on where you can and cannot carry these firearms. And we're going to make sure that the only place you can basically carry it is on a public sidewalk. But you can't go into a business with it. You can't go into a church. You can't go into a park. And we're going to make so much limitations.
Subways, right?
Yes, we're going to make so much limitations on you that at the end of the day, we're going to screw you. Because there's a possible chance that you might not even remember that, hey, this place that you're in is a sensitive location. And if you're caught, you're facing a felony charge. All right, she put a whole bunch of stipulations in. You can't go into Central Park. You cannot go into Bryant Park. You cannot go into the public library. You cannot go into the subway station. The bus stop is MTA property. You cannot be there. You cannot be on the city bus. Amtrak, well, not Amtrak.
Now on the list, was there something about, like, you know, any public events, parades, and such?
Well, on the penal code, it states that if there is an event, that there has to be clear, conspicuous signage that this area is a gun-free zone. There has to be conspicuous signage. For example, a perfect example of clear, conspicuous signage, Times Square has those, you know, I would say what, 8 by 8, if I'm not mistaken, 8 by 8 signs on there that says gun-free zone. And it also lists the penalty that you'll face if you are caught with a firearm in that location. The location that I was at was a public street. All right.
So you don't feel the funeral counted as like a public event or a parade or anything
the
like
funeral
that?
Counted as that? No, because where I was a public street. I was in the middle of the street.
It wasn't on the main path where the fallen officer was going to be
No,
carried.
the church, I was actually far away from that. So that where I was, as a matter of fact, where I got arrested was right at my car. That was literally a block away from the main intersection as to where the Long Island Railroad goes.
Oh, okay.
All right. I was in the middle of a public street. All right. The only thing that the street was closed for was regular cars, but regular people were walking in shorts, Crocs, flip-flops. So, in my opinion, with the sensitive location laws, let me guess, if you were living in one of those houses on that block and you have a valid concealed carry, and you walk outside of the house with that concealed carry, does that mean those residents are now felons? Think of it that way. If these people have a Nassau County concealed carry permit, and at the time this whole thing is going on, I guess the moment they step out their house and if they are caught, they're felons, even though it's their block, it's their residence.
Doesn't make sense.
Makes absolutely no sense.
Now, I spoke to a cop. He said that if what you did was wrong and it was an arrestable offense, what about the retired cops that may have brought their own guns to the funeral?
Well, here's the thing. Retired cops are exempt. All right, there's a certain amount of exemptions for retired cops. Like, for example, like even working an armed security job, you know, a retired cop can, you know, work with their own firearm. You know, it's everything is different for retired cops. You know, even though they're no longer law enforcement officers, they are still, you know, treated as such, which is a good thing for them too as well. You know, so they're exempt from that. They're exempt from the sensitive location laws.
How do you feel this is going to go for you? I understand you have a court date coming up.
Yes, I have a court date on May 28th.
How do you feel that's going to go? Do you feel, you know, your prior relationship with this officer is a factor in how it may play out?
I feel that. I feel like the fact that I've known him for all these years, it could play out in my favor. It all depends. I don't know how it's going to go, I'll be honest with you. I have no idea how it's going to turn out to be.
And you were not somebody who brought a gun to a funeral with bad intentions.
No, not at all.
Right?
Not at all.
This was not a uniformed officer who saw somebody open carrying a firearm illegally and decided to take action on a gunman. Certainly not that kind of situation.
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you exactly how I feel about this.
This was an off-duty cop who knew you previously, who accused you of not having a permit, and then when you showed your permit, still decided to make an arrest.
Yes.
Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, 100%. And honestly speaking, I hate to be this one that I hate to be the one to sound like this, but I think that what it was you know, and stuff like this, because you know what, I support law enforcement 100%. You know, even with this experience, it does not change my views on on law enforcement. It doesn't make me, you know, I've seen a couple cops say, they're like, listen man, we're sorry for what happened, you know, I hope you don't turn against us, you know, I hope you don't, you know, look at us different. And I'm like, no, absolutely not, because I know plenty of good cops on this job that would have never done that.
And how would, you know, if you consider most cops good, how would you consider this, what's his name,
Joseph, yeah.
How would you describe him?
After that experience, to be honest, you know what, there's a Jamaican saying that says, you know, see me is one thing and then living with me is the other. You know, seeing somebody and being their friend and being around them versus being around them all the time is a complete different story. So I don't know too much about, you know, his interactions with others. I have had one person, you know, when they found out online that it was, you know, when they found out what happened online, when they found out what happened on Instagram, and I mentioned, you know, who it was and everything like that, somebody, you know, not saying names, but somebody who is, you know, a city worker, all right, first responder, reached out and, you know, explained to me, he was like, yeah, I had the same experience with him while I was on duty. And he was obnoxious, he was rude, he was nasty.
He certainly didn't arrest his coworker for anything off duty, right?
I have no idea. I don't know what goes on with them.
So his coworker described him as somebody.
No. This wasn't a first responder from MTA police. This was a separate first responder that explained that he has had a nasty experience. No, he didn't work with him at all. It's a separate.
They work with other responders, fire, EMS, etc.
Yeah, but but they weren't even working together. Okay. This was, him sitting in his department vehicle, and he, came in contact with this same Joe, and he described to me that the experience wasn't pleasant. And this guy was on duty as well, sitting in a department vehicle, And it's crazy because when you really think of it, when you think of the severity of the situation, if this guy is willing to berate a first responder, regardless of the status, if he's willing to do that to a first responder, just imagine what he'll do to an average citizen. I mean, think of it. Think of what he did to me. And in my personal opinion, and the way how I feel about this is, it's people like that, I'm trying to get on the job, and I feel like it's people like that get to wear the uniform, and there's people like that get on the job. And it's people like that make good officers look bad. All right? And I'll be honest with you, because when these things happen, when things happen in other states, for example, like even George Floyd, that was 4 years ago, but that was all the way in another state, NYPD is the one to pay the price. Every single time there is an incident, where it could be in California, NYPD for some reason is the one to pay the price, all right? And other police departments pay the price for something that happened in another state. And it's people like that make good police officers look bad.
How do you explain this behavior? Did you do anything to Joe that may have upset him? Was there any kind of beef whatsoever?
Actually, no, never. We've never had a falling out, and that's the crazy thing to me, because I have the messages, we were literally laughing a few days prior to this. He has the same car as me, and he would call me when he had problems with his car. Hey, my AC doesn't work. Do you know what to do? Oh, my suspension doesn't work, or my car, is fishtailing, and I would tell him, hey, this is what the problem is. I think you need to take it to a dealer, but since it's a department vehicle, have their fleet services look at it. But I would tell him, hey, this could be the problem, that could be the problem. I'm not sure. But he would call me if he had an issue. So the fact that he would go from 5 years worth of laughing, making memes, photoshopping my face on someone else's body, making fake pages about me on Instagram, making fake pages with the Photoshop pictures that he used, right? You went from all of that to just being angry on a Saturday at a funeral, which I was saying to myself, I was like, yo, I wonder if this guy's drunk. I wonder if he is intoxicated, because he didn't even look well. Like, he looked like somebody else. Didn't smell any alcohol, man, but he looked like it was like, you ever
something was off.
Yeah, something was off. It's like one of those moments where you're like, what the hell happened to you, Joey? Like, what did you do with the real Joey?
Now, would this count as if you are charged, what will be the charge? Is it a misdemeanor? Is it a felony?
It's a felony. It's a Class E felony.
Now, you don't get that on your record until you are charged after the court date, or is it already on your record?
It's on my record already. I work for so I have news for you, by the way.
You don't have to say the name of the company, but I understand. Tell me about your work.
Yeah, so I work for an armored truck company, and I also work for another security company. So you work for a retired cop. Yeah. 2
security companies right now you're currently employed?
Was.
Okay.
Was.
So what happened with those 2 companies?
Well, right now the other company doesn't have any work for me right now, but if there was work, I couldn't work anyway, because once you get, even if it's not a conviction, once you get a charge on your record, that charge gets sent up to Albany. So I have a valid New York State security license. It's an unarmed, and what's crazy was I was going to do the armed guard the next week, the week after the arrest. I was scheduled to do that armed guard course and never got the chance to do it. But the moment you get any kind of charge, even if it's a misdemeanor, it gets sent up to Albany, and Albany will send you back a letter. They give you 30 days to write a letter to them explaining what happened, and if you don't write it, they can actually revoke your license. my license was suspended. I work for an armored truck company.
So one company don't have much work for you right now, and the other one, you said your license was suspended.
Yeah, both of those companies, I need a valid security license to work, because the companies can get audited if I don't have a license to work.
So it's licensed by the state.
Licensed by the state of New York, yes, 100%.
By the city, okay. So of course
the state. This license comes from Albany.
Okay. So they're in communication about
yes.
your record.
So, yes. So that got sent up to that charge got sent up to Albany. Albany was notified about it. Albany sent me a letter. I had to write them a 30-day letter. I had my lawyer look at it, had the lawyer notarize it, make sure that everything was set. Sent that letter to them. So it was the weekend. It was the week after my vacation week. I got called into the office on a Monday by my boss, and my boss says to me, I knew it was going to happen, because I said the moment I got that letter, it's going to go to my job eventually. So came into the office, and she sat me down, and she said, Hakim, she pulled it up, and she's like, explain to me what happened. And I explained to her, and I'm like, this is exactly what happened. I was arrested. I had a valid New York City Conceal carry permit. And she was in shock. She was like, are you serious? And I said, yes. So she said, listen, Hakim, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this because we need people. We're short on people. And on top of that, I was working with the guy in the morning. He couldn't really, he's a retired guy. He didn't bring his glasses, so I had to basically be his eyes for him that day, because we're transporting the merchandise. He's calling me. He's like, Hakim, what's taking so long? I'm like, I'm in the office. I said to the boss, I said, listen, do you want me to do just do this one more run and drop off these merchandise? And she said, you want to do it? And I asked her if she wanted me to do it. She's like, listen, Hakim, I would love for you to do it, but we have to get you off this. We have to get you off the clock right away, because we can get fined for it. But I got suspended that Monday, and I've been out of work pretty much ever since. And the only source of income that I'm relying on is the photojournalism work, which isn't even paid by the hour. It is paid by the story. It is freelance.
Commission, right?
Yes, commission.
So you go around. Tell me about what you do there.
Yeah, I just go around to different crime scenes, motor vehicle accidents, fires, and I take photos and videos and I sell them to whoever. The last thing I recently did, I covered the Met Gala, and a friend of mine asked me to cover it for him because he couldn't be in multiple places at once. So I covered it for him that day, and that's my income at the moment. Yeah, it was a celebrity event, yes.
Okay, not just
but it's not too frequent. It's not too frequent. It's if somebody isn't able to do it. If they call me and I said I'm available, I'll do it for them. But other than that, I did. That's my source of income at the moment. I personally wouldn't wish this on anyone. Especially when you have bills coming in, you got your car insurance coming in, you have storage fees coming in, you have tickets that you get every now and then, moving violations, and you have to pay that off and everything. And then like right now, this weekend I have one photography gig to do, but this is what's basically sustaining me.
Now, this court date coming up, if the charges are dropped, do you feel you're going to be able to work security again? Do you feel you're going to be
Well, I could get my security license back. I'm not sure about getting my firearms back. New York is a completely different animal. New York doesn't really like the idea of people having guns. They despise it. Listen,
especially Eric Adams, right?
Yeah, they are. Listen, especially Eric Adams, especially Kathy Hochul.
He said he was going to knock on your neighbor's doors. And did you have that experience asking about Hakim?
No, never had that.
I think he's mentioned that, but I don't know if that was actually something that they did.
No, but listen, man.
What about the social media? Tell me about that. Did they go through your social media at all?
They didn't go through my social media, not that I know of.
Did you have to provide any social media?
They didn't ask me to provide it. Oh, what, for the gun permit?
Yes.
Oh, no. Funny thing is, I actually did list it, but when I got there, I guess the Supreme Court struck it down, and they said, we don't need your social media anymore.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what Hochul was trying to do. Hochul was trying to use that as a deterrent to say, okay, well, if you have something on your social media, then basically we could deny you for that. So let's say if you were conservative, you support Trump, like I do. I support Trump. I'm conservative. I'm Republican, You know, I stand for law and order. I support the police. I support our military. I support this country. I support all first responders. You know, I don't agree with criminals being let go on the streets, especially after carrying an illegal firearm, right? I should make that clear. An illegal firearm. But let's say if you are a person like me and, you know, you post about how you feel about what's going on, you know, basically what Hoko is trying to say is, okay, well, you know what, if this person's like that, you know, let's deny him a permit, because let's deny this individual a permit because he probably has other intentions. And I think that's what she was trying to do, but luckily the Supreme Court struck that down.
What about your aspirations of being a police officer? Do you think, depending on how this how your court date goes, how do you feel that might affect that?
Well, I guess the NYPD, I could kiss that goodbye. I guess I could kiss, like, really any New York City agency goodbye. This is going to affect me because at the end of the day, like, even if I'm not convicted, I still have to list and explain to people. I still have to list this down, like any agency that I go to. Even if I go to Florida, I have to list and explain, were you ever charged with a felony? Yes. So either way you put it, there's no, even if it's, you know, even if the charges are dropped and everything is sealed, law enforcement, especially when they're doing their background investigation, they still have access to it. So there's no, okay, well, I'm going to hide it and just pretend that nothing happens, because they're eventually going to find out. And if you didn't tell them, they're going to disqualify you for lying to them anyway, or withholding information from them. So I have to tell them. It's going to make it more difficult. It's going to raise eyebrows. It's going to make me look like a criminal, but I'm actually not a criminal. I'm a hardworking individual. Even though right now I'm going through a tough time, I lost basically both my jobs, you know, and I'm working on one job that is commission only. I would much rather starve before I go out there and rob somebody and take money from them. I would much rather starve before...
Not who you are.
Exactly. I would much rather starve before I rip somebody off and con somebody out of money. I would much rather starve before I con somebody and lie to them. I would much rather starve. I would much rather die before I hurt somebody, before I shoot and kill somebody over money. I would much rather the good Lord take me before I ever do something like that, because that's not the type of person I am. You know, the type of person I am is, I grew up in an old-fashioned Jamaican household. Do with what you have. If you have something, make do with it. If you don't have it, then, you know, it'll come. But I'm not a criminal. I don't go out there robbing people. I don't go out there lying to people. I don't go out there cheating people out of money. I don't go out there doing any of that. I don't go out there sticking up people. But, you know, it's crazy because New York City is the type of city that they don't go after the criminals. They go after the law-abiding citizens.
How do you see your future moving forward as far as what you might do? Or
I don't even know yet. I don't even know yet. You know, I'm a criminal justice major. I, you know, studied that with the intention of, you know, getting into law enforcement. It was either to me wanting to become a lawyer or wanting to become a cop, and I figured, you know, being a law enforcement officer is a much easier route and much less expensive route than law school anyway. And, you know, it's a life-changing experience, you know. I'm looking for work. I'm asking, you know, around for work. I hate it because I don't like being home all day, so I'll just come outside and go to the city. But it is a life-changing experience.
Two groups of protesters converging in Times Square, and then it turned violent. A car plowed right through them. Good evening at 11 o'clock. I'm Sade Better-Noir.
I'm David Navarro in tonight for Bill. Let's get right to Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger live in Times Square with the very latest. Josh.
David, happened here at 46th and 7th. A protest group from Black Lives Matter was right here in this intersection when the car came from the west to the east and mowed right through them before it continued east on 46th Street. Here is the video. It is quite dramatic. And that video, of course, was incredibly dramatic. The car, that black Taurus, caused a lot of confusion at first because it looks just like a police car, and in fact it is a police interceptor edition of the Ford Taurus. Although the NYPD says it is not one of theirs. In fact, it's registered to a civilian who likely purchased it at auction. Now, police say the person driving that car had been involved in a separate counter-protest, pro-Trump Make America Great Again protest that happened to bump into the Black Lives Matter protest right here in Times Square. Police officers told that car to move along, to get out of there, to try to separate the groups, but instead that car accelerated, as you saw, through the crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters. Police are looking for that car and for the driver who was driving that car, but here's the thing. No one has come forward to say they were injured, and so according to the law, there really are no victims for whom police could prosecute that driver. So right now they're asking anyone who was involved in that Black Lives Matter protest who might have been hurt to step forward and file a police report so that they then have a case against the person behind the wheel of that car. Back live here, this is a real NYPD unmarked black Ford Taurus police interceptor. You can understand why there was such confusion at the time that this went on fire on social media, that it might actually have been a police car. But again, the car involved in that video is not an official police vehicle. Maybe it was someday in the past, but it is not tonight, and police continue to search for whoever was driving it.
You know, from the video, you see it there, a car ramming through a crowd. We can't tell what happened beforehand. But as you look at this, they're trying to find the car now. Could this somehow be justified? If people were, and we don't know this, if they were attacking the car, could that be justified?
I had a drive through the Crown Heights pogrom a number of years ago that David Dinkins allowed happened, where black people went out looking to kill only Jewish people. David Dinkins let that go on. The last riot in New York was the last time we had a Democrat mayor in New York. It doesn't happen under strong Republican mayors. It only happens under left-wing Democratic mayors like de Blasio. Well, what I saw, even at the very beginning of that video, which looks doctored to me, there were bicycles stopping the car from going, and they were yelling, screaming, and banging on the car. With what I've seen on television for the last, what I've seen on television for the last 3 months, I could very much assume the next thing that was happening is they're going to bust open the window of the car, pull me out, and beat the living daylights out.
And that's what we don't know.
Right, I drive right through.
And that's why you wonder whether or not that could be, would that be justified?
But I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
You're damn right it'd be justified. I'm a lawyer. It's reasonable expectation. What could I reasonably expect these wild men who are yelling at me and banging on my car are going to do to me? Give me a kiss? I'd have to be a fool. Yeah. Did he have somebody else there he was protecting? I had to do this once with a man who was in a panic with me. I wasn't going to sit there and let them kill the man because he was Jewish. I can drive right through them.
Yeah, I can understand.
You don't go banging on cars. Decent, normal human beings don't bang on cars. You get arrested for banging on cars, except if you're in a democratic city, right? And they tolerate all kinds of crime, which is what is happening under Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's an extension of what's happening to the McCluskeys, defending their own home. It doesn't make any sense. Mayor, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Now, for the folks who are watching this video who might say, hey, I recognize him. Wasn't this the guy involved with the incident in, was it 2020?
Yeah, 2020. During
the BLM protests and all of that. Can you, explain anything, tell us about that situation?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a little rundown on that situation. Honestly, I regret that because, now,
first of all, what did you do?
So, I regret actually just being there. That's what I regret. I regret actually going out that night and being there, being in that area.
Okay, so I understand there was a protest going on in Times Square?
Yes, it was a Black Lives Matter protest, but it wasn't for George Floyd. It was for another individual that supposedly died by the hands of police in Rochester, New York. So that's what exactly they were protesting. I think it was a bit of George Floyd. It was like the remnants of George Floyd. This was in September, by the way.
Now, you as a photojournalist also cover protests, right?
Yes, I do.
Did you show up as a photojournalist?
Yes, I did. I had both my cameras with me that day.
Were you with anybody else or by yourself?
No, I actually came by myself. I actually came to meet up with a few friends that were there, but I didn't come to get involved. I don't go there to argue with people. I don't go there to do any of that. I literally just go there to take my photos and, go about my business. And, 3 friends were there, along with 2 other people that were friends of them. were there, and they were being chased by Black Lives Matter individuals.
Now, you mentioned your friends were being chased by BLM.
Yes.
Now, what did your friends do to be chased by them?
I have no idea. The only thing I could say is, I don't know, maybe they had a, dispute and agreement on, like,
were they wearing anything marking themselves as, whose side they might have been on or anything like that?
I believe so.
What were they wearing?
The typical, American flag, back the blue, which is your freedom of speech. It's your right to wear it. Just like how, like how these...
Would you describe them as counter-protesters who showed up?
I would describe them as counter-protesters, yeah.
So they showed up as counter-protesters. You showed up as a photojournalist.
Yes.
And you're seeing all this go down. What's going through your head, and what happens next?
I'm shaking my head because I agree. You know what? I agree with the counter-protesters. It is their right to protest, all right? So you mean to tell me that, it's okay. So what I don't like about how the city runs and how liberal this New York is the fact that it's, okay, well, if you're not on the liberal side and if you're not doing things the liberal way, then we're going to shut you down. And it's just like social media platforms. If you're not going the liberal way, they shut you down. You can't comment on anything. You can't go live. I had Instagram block me from going live one day because I actually shared my story in the comment section for a pro-Second Amendment advocate group, and they banned me from doing that. They said I couldn't. They stopped me from commenting for at least a week. I couldn't comment on anything. Then after that, they actually ended up banning me from going live for a day. I couldn't go live for a day. All right, and that's how it is. You can't have any freedom of speech. The counter-protesters, they weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't violent.
So they were got chased after.
Yeah, they were being chased.
What happened next?
So, at the time I had my car, and bad mistake, I just got the car too. Literally just got it the day before. I got the car, and I parked it on that block, but it was further away from them. So I offered to the deputy inspector, and I said, listen, deputy, I was like, hey, listen, I have an idea. All right, which I should have just let PD handle it. Should have just let them handle it and let them deal with it. But I said, you know what, these are friends of mine. It's not like these are people that I'm just jumping out of my way to help that I don't know.
Have you met them before?
Yes, yeah,
okay.
Plenty of times we've met. There was an old lady, Susan Miller, that was in the car. All right, she has to be no.
But you said she's in the car.
She was in the.
Who got in the car with you, and how did that happen?
It was three people that I knew. All right. Diana, Susan Miller, and there was another girl that was in the car too, as well as two other friends of theirs that came in the car with me. All right, they were being chased by the Black Lives Matter individuals.
So you offered your car as like, hey, let's get out of here.
I said yes. I said, let's get out of here.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna go home anyway. And I said, which way are you going? They said, we're gonna go to Long Island Railroad. I said, perfect, because what I'll do is I'll take you straight down to 34th Street, drop you off there. I'll continue going down 34th Street. I'll get in the FDR, go to the Brooklyn Bridge, and I'll be on my merry way. And you guys will get home safe. As long as you're away from this catastrophe, that's fine.
So you guys all get in the car?
Yeah, they get in the car. At first, the deputy inspector says to me, he's like, listen, just do me a favor. Don't make any sudden move. Just wait for me, and I will give you the okay. And the deputy inspector at the time says, okay, we'll give you the okay.
So this is a crowded situation you're talking about.
Yeah, this is a disaster now because they're being chased. And
how many protesters were going after them?
Oh, this was well over 50 of them going after them. All right. And PD at the time was outnumbered, and it was growing because not only did you have the protesters that were chasing them, that were following them on 46th Street, you had about maybe another 300 protesters that were on the same intersection of 46th Street and 46th Street and 7th Avenue. That was there at the time. So the inspector says, listen, deputy inspector says, listen, get your car and we'll reverse you out. Got in my car and I was going to reverse them out. And you know what? Had I known that day, they always say the word if comes last. Had I known that day, I would have basically said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to leave the car here. I'm going to leave it here overnight. I don't care if I get a ticket. All right. I'll take the $115 ticket, but it'll save me in the long run. You could even tow the car for it. Like, yeah, I can care less. That's gonna save me. You could tow the car. I'll pay the 300 and something to get it out.
So what did you do that you regret doing?
I regret just being there, just going there that night. I regret going there.
Okay, but you're in the car. You got 50 protesters after you.
Yeah.
And
so I get in the car
did you
and
say they were surrounding the car?
yes, but here's the crazy thing. So the original plan was for us to reverse out on 46th Street. It's gonna reverse out, go on 8th Avenue. I would have driven up 8th Avenue, turned, made a left, and took 9th Avenue down, and then made a left, and then went on 34th Street, dropped them all off, and then left. All right? That was the game plan. All right? I ended up making like, what, three individual stops. Ended up making 3 individual stops to drop everyone off.
Okay, but that's later.
That's later.
What did you do in that time that, you know,
so we were supposed to...
happened?
Yeah, so we were supposed to reverse out on 46th Street. And the protesters surrounded the car from behind. So either way you put it, even if we wanted to reverse, there's no way of reversing without hitting the protesters. So SRG made a barrier with the width of 46th Street. They made a barrier and surrounded the car completely. You know, and the only option was for us to go forward. I wasn't told to go through the Marriott Hotel. So as I'm going further down, you know, all the protesters start flooding in the middle of the streets. And I don't know, like, you know, I'm guessing the guys down there must have called the guys up there and said, hey, the car is coming, and surround them. So, and as soon as I drove down to the intersection of 46th and 7th, you know, I'm surrounded completely. There's a BLM guy that is on a bicycle, all right? God, I hate to say it, but it's a typical white liberal. Comes up, rides his bike, and walks up to me, and bang! On the right window. Guys are trying to open the doors, and I'm like, listen, I said to Diana, listen, Diana, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. I don't know what these guys are capable of, and I don't want to know what these guys are capable of, all right? You know, and especially after seeing a video where an actual police fan, you know, was set on fire by white liberal lawyers who thought that there were cops in the van. They set the van on fire. I said, listen, these protesters are emboldened. They don't give a shit about police presence, all right? At the end of the day, if they want to surround the car and Molotov cocktail the car, all right, with me and an old lady, Susan Miller, who is no taller than 4'11", sitting in the car, in the front seat, and, you know, for the people in the back of the car, if they want to light this car up, they will do so, all right? I cannot trust these protesters as far as I can throw them. I don't want to know what they're going to do. I don't have any intentions of finding out. I said to myself, I knew that there was going to be consequences, but I said, I'm just going to get out there. I'm going to get out. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get out there.
How did you get out?
So I eased up and I hit the gas a little bit, and I basically jolted towards them to give them the idea that, listen, I want to get out. I'm trying to get out of here. I mean, no harm.
So you did not do pedal to the metal
right away, no.
Let's drive as fast as possible.
No. Okay. I kept on doing that, just kept on, like, you know, like, get out of the way. Like, seriously, I don't want any problems. Yeah. I did just inches forward, foot forward. Listen, I just need to get out of here. I don't want any problems. I don't want any harm. You see, obviously, I'm not coming out of my car. You know, it's funny because I'm in such a shock that I literally had a big can of mace in the car, and I had another can of mace with me, but I didn't think to use it, you know. And I'm like, you know, maybe if I'd used it,
have to wind down the window.
Yes, of course. And if I roll down the window, they can grab me out of the car.
Did you see any weapons on them?
All right, I didn't see anything. I was focused straight forward. I knew the guy was there. He banged on my window. I'm like, listen, I have to get out. I have to get out this area. You know, I really do. I have to get out this area. I cannot stay here. And I inch forward. These guys still did not budge. All right, and then they're still surrounding the car. And then after that, I said, okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm going through. all right, stepped on the gas, and I drove through, and no one got hit. That was the funniest thing. No one got hit. There was no one on top of my hood. There was no one that flew into a pole. There was no one that flew on the sidewalk. They all cleared the way. I basically parted the area like Moses did the Red Sea, and they all spread out.
No one ended up underneath the car?
No one was pinned underneath the car. There was no pin. There was no nothing.
So when people say you're the guy who ran over like 10 protesters, how accurate is that statement?
I call bullshit. BS. And no one was ran over. No one was ran over. And I'm pretty sure if someone was ran over and it was in critical condition, or even worse, I would not be here, you know, sitting here and talking to you about this. You know, by now I'd be upstate. So no one was hit. No one was hit. All right.
Now, did you get arrested later, or how did that work?
Yeah, so apparently I got a lawyer involved in this. A lawyer, fast forward to 2021, it was February. Lawyer messages me, says to Sam, give him a call. I gave him a call. He's like, Hakim, I got bad news. They were originally looking to push for a felony for this one. A felony for self-defense.
Now, I understand you had to turn yourself in?
Yes, I had to turn myself in.
I recall that happening.
Yes, I had to turn myself in on March 2021. I had to surrender down at 60 Center Street.
And
was placed in
handcuffs.
handcuffs.
After the incident? How many months would you say?
So yes, that's literally about 6 months after the incident. Yeah, and it's funny because I had to go to court online because at the time they were doing Zoom, and they said, yeah, if this was such a serious incident, why wait till now to arrest the guy? Why wasn't the guy arrested immediately after?
So were you arrested when you turned yourself in?
Yes, I was placed under arrest. I was placed in cuffs. I was, I was booked the whole 9 yards, fingerprinted.
What was the charges?
Misdemeanor. Misdemeanor, reckless endangerment in the 2nd degree.
Nothing about vehicular assault or anything?
No vehicular assault, no attempted vehicular homicide, none of that. It was just misdemeanor in the 2nd degree, reckless endangerment. That's what they charged me with.
And like you said, no protester was seriously injured or killed in that incident?
No, none.
Any regrets as far as, do you feel you should not have maybe told the cop about your CCW, anything like that? Do you regret getting a CCW in the first place? Do you recommend people get a CCW? How do you feel about all those?
Do I regret getting my CCW? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. I never thought that I would see a day where New York City would let law-abiding citizens carry a firearm for protection, because at first, before the whole Supreme Court decision, remember, you had to demonstrate a so-called need as to why you wanted to have a firearm. And the only people that were getting it was the people that, like, let's say if they were collecting rent money, they were carrying money, they were carrying loads of cash, or wealthy people like, Howard Stern, Robert De Niro, Trump, they all had concealed carry licenses. Celebrities, they were getting concealed carry licenses. They technically had it. Yeah, politicians. You
recall the Ina Verkanov situation?
Which situation was that?
Ina Verkanov?
No.
I think she was she arrested for having a firearm, a concealed carry
was
firearm?
that the protest? Was that
at a protest.
Yes.
Well, it was last year.
No, I think it was actually. I think it was this year, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was.
Yeah.
Or it could have been last year. It could have been last year.
And that I feel is a situation where the garment was not concealing that firearm properly. Otherwise, no one would have known, and it would not have been an issue.
Yes. No. Yeah. In my part, yeah. You first off, she kind of should have known that, especially because that was one thing that was definitely taught at the classes that you take, is that protests are a sensitive location. So she's probably facing charges now. And even if she's not facing charges, she definitely lost her license.
Anything else you'd like to say about this?
Well, I'll tell this to people, man. Like, listen, as I said, I would not recommend. What I'm going through right now, I personally don't think I'd wish it on anyone, And it's a lot to take in. It's a lot losing your job. It's like one thing if you're younger and you're like 18, 19, or even 21, you're still living with your parents. You've got plenty of time. But like you're 31 now. Trying to advance in my life and everything like that. And I would tell people, if you're getting a concealed carry, great. Arm yourself. Protect yourself. All right? Cops cannot be everywhere. And do not listen to the BS that these politicians are telling you. Oh, you don't need a firearm because, you know, there are plenty of police around. Meanwhile, they have a full armed security detail that is comprised of active cops that are following them around. All right? They have that security detail. We don't have it. But if you do decide to get a concealed carry license, what I will tell you is be careful. Be very careful. Be on top of the laws. Know the law to the fullest extent. Know the places that you can and cannot go with it, because it can cost you. You know, it can and will cost you. It's costing me. You know, I'm a prime example of dealing with something like this. Just be careful. You get it? That's great. Be careful. And one thing I will tell you, if you get it, listen, shut up. Don't tell anyone that you have it. No one needs to know you have it.
Do you regret posting it on social media?
I regret a bit of yes and no, because the problem is no one else was giving me an issue with it. No one else was giving me an issue. All right? Do I regret telling it to Joey? Yes. I regret telling it to him. You know? No, well, now that I know. You know?
And about him, do you feel that he's gonna suffer any kind of consequences?
Oh, no.
For this?
Absolutely
what would
not.
you call it? An off-duty arrest?
Absolutely not. You know, the way how I feel is MTA, the internal affairs, you know, they're gonna basically investigate it. And tell me what's the worst that can happen to him? He's gonna lose vacation days. That's all? Like, seriously, vacation days? At the end of the day, he still has his job. He still has his gun. He still has his shield. He's still wearing the uniform. All right? Nothing's gonna happen to him. He's gonna lose vacation days. Boo-hoo, you lose vacation days. Wow, a trip to Germany. So big deal.
Do you think there could be any kind of lawsuit out of this, you know, considering that, you know, you lost your 2 security jobs?
Oh, yes, 100%.
And also it may compromise your future in law enforcement.
Oh, yes, 100%. 100%. I am going after this. I'm not letting... There's no free pass for this one. There's absolutely no free pass for this one. All right? He has his job. All right? At the end of the day, he has a firearm. He can go and work another armed security job if he wants to. Funny thing is, this is the same kid I offered to give him a job at my workplace, because they needed armed people there, and I offered to give him a job. But listen, here's the thing. I think that nothing will happen to him. Nothing will really come of it. He'll probably lose vacation days. He'll probably get a little slap on the wrist. They'll probably maybe give him a command discipline or whatever the case is, but he's not getting fired. He should be fired. If not, suspended without pay. Taken out of whatever unit he's working in, the highway unit. Sent back to patrol, but nothing's going to ever happen to him. Absolutely nothing will happen to him. So, yeah, that's how I feel. Nothing's going to happen to him. They're not going to do anything to him. All right? He's going to continue being the same, you know, prick that he is. Now that I really get to know him. Now that I've really gotten to know him since that incident. He's going to be that same prick. So nothing's going to change with him.
Well, we'll be keeping updated on your, on your court case that's coming up.
Yes, it's May 28th
course,
once again.
Tell us about your GoFundMe that we'll put in the description of the video.
Yes, I have a GoFundMe. I paid the lawyer off right now, $1,200. The total fees are $500, and that's if this doesn't go to trial. And if it does go to trial, it's gonna definitely cost me more. I'm looking at probably like nearly $10,000 to do this, plus whatever. I'm taking care of bills and everything else. I pay my own bills, everything. So I'm taking care of bills myself. So there's my GoFundMe page. If you or anyone else.
Is that the same link that you had previously?
Yes, I just changed.
I understand you had another link.
Yes, I just changed. I used that same page and I just switched out the description and everything.
What was the previous one for?
That was for the incident that took place in 2020 with the protesters in Times Square.
Okay, because you also had a legal situation there that
you
had to pay for. Okay.
Yeah, so whatever was originally the amount there, that was a good portion of that was from the incident, you know, in 2020.
So yeah, we'll post that GoFundMe in the description if anyone's interested. And anything else? Any final words?
I really hope that, you know, there is some kind of consequences for that guy. You know, I really hope so, because I think that he makes, you know, it hasn't changed my perception on officers, but things like that will make the police look bad. And it's, you know, there are people out there that do support cops, and, you know, it's stuff like that that make people, you know, look at cops differently. I don't. It hasn't changed my perception. But I think that there needs to be consequences, because he's going to come out there, he's going to go out there, and he's going to continue doing it to more people. And like, think of it. He knows me, and he's willing to throw me under the bus because he's so eager to make a gun arrest. He wants to, I'm going to be real with you, he probably doesn't do anything throughout his career. He probably doesn't really do anything. He probably doesn't get any action. And I think that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to show, hey, I can make a gun arrest, I can make a gun caller at a funeral service.
Even
like,
though
seriously.
it would compromise his own friendship with someone that you considered a friend.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you'll be surprised, man. Listen, you know, you'll be surprised. It's your own people. Sometimes, you know, we're so worried about strangers, you know. We're so worried about strangers hurting us, and sometimes it's our own people that we've known for years that will turn their back. And look at what he did. He wanted to prove that, I don't know what he was trying to get out of it. I don't know if he was trying to make his way to detective like that. I don't know if he was trying to get his face out there, like, yo, you know, like, yo, man, this is the guy that made a gun arrest at a funeral, man. Like, yo, we got to pull him into this unit, or we got to, you know, he definitely needs a promotion. I don't know if he was trying to do that, like, you know, hey, look at me, I'm Joey, I made a gun arrest at a funeral. But, you know, I knew that he was definitely trying to screw me that day, because when I was sitting in the RMP, he was saying to all the Nassau County officers, because I had another mag in the glove compartment, and he said to the Nassau County officers, check the rounds in the mag, and if it has more than 10 rounds, he's fucked. And I'm like, fucked? How on earth am I fucked?
Is it the magazine capacity?
Yeah, that's the magazine. You cannot have more than 10 rounds in your magazine. And I'm sitting in the car, and I'm like, you dumb fuck. Like, you know, excuse my language, but you fucking idiot. I comply with the law. I have 10 rounds in the magazine. And you can't even legally buy a magazine in New York State that's over 10 rounds. And let's say if you came from another state and you did an FFL transfer to a gun store in New York, they will, and if you have 15 rounds in that magazine, they will take that magazine. Yeah, they will take that magazine. So it is, you know, it is illegal. So at the end of the day, like, no gun store is going to sell you a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. So I'm like, you idiot, go ahead and dump the magazine. That's exactly what you were trying to do, paint me as a criminal, so you can make your gun arrest, and so you can look good for whatever promotion that you're trying to take. And the words that I have for him, and excuse my language, is fuck you. Fuck you. Like, you throw your own friend under the bus because you wanted to make a gun caller and you wanted to make a good impression. So people could see, I'm Joey from Staten Island. I made a gun call at a funeral service. That's basically what he tried to do. Just paint the impression that I'm the super cop.
Do you feel that a lot of cops have that impression of him, that he did something heroic that day?
I have no idea. I can't speak for people because I don't know what's being said. I have no idea. But yeah, looks like that day he must have replaced his MTA patch with the Superman logo that day. I think he did. He must have replaced that patch with the Superman logo.
Well, thanks again, Hakim, for the interview.
Yeah.
We'll be staying updated on the case. And again, if everybody...
It's funny, I came out with the new hashtag the other day. That called Thank You, Joey. Every time I either like stub my toe into the furniture or something like that, or my phone drops, I'm like, thank you, Joey, every single time because of this whole thing. So I'm like, thank you, Joey.
And the GoFundMe, it will be in the description of the video. And mention your Instagram page.
Yes, I have two Instagram pages. The first one is perception_of_law_enforcement, perception of law enforcement. That is the main page for all the law enforcement photography and videography. And then the other page is my personal photography page for anyone who is interested in having their wedding shot, their baby shower, maternity, engagement, graduation photos. that's the page that you look at, and it's called Embrace New York City, the whole New York City. So yes.
Thanks again, Hakim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.